So we're here to talk about strike training. What is a strike? What happens during a strike? What might you be asked to do during a strike? And to answer any questions you have. But one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to start off with a negotiations update. So, Adam, I'm going to let you jump in for that.
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Camp. I am the business agent who is coordinating the table side of our negotiations. And so, yes, wanted to give you the quick negotiations update. If you hadn't been paying attention, obviously we're in the middle of negotiating our contract. More importantly, our contract obviously expires June 30th, and so it is traditional to spend the last few days before the contract expires, June 23rd through 27th in this case, in a 5-day long negotiation session. So that's what we're coming up on. Um, to date, we started off with us coming with a fairly tight set of proposals and management coming with a lot of junk. Slowly but surely, they've removed all of their junk, and we've agreed to a couple of things that we, either actively wanted or liked. But the big things that are out there is we haven't spent any time talking about money, other than in the healthcare context. And usually this is just because, especially when there's not a lot of money and there's not a budget, we didn't know where we were going to stand in negotiations. And so we've been waiting for week to talk about things like across the board wage increases. What we do know is their health and insurance proposals. Their health insurance proposals, as you will see later, are terrible, awful, very bad, no good. And thanks, Britton. Yes, I work with the 20 people in the room and not the people who are necessarily going out and talking to all of y'all. Um, but at any rate, their healthcare proposals have been bad. They're planning on increasing the share of the premiums that we pay. They want to increase our deductibles. They want to pay our co-pays, and they have shown no sign from moving off of these proposals. And that is what has really made us like have serious alarm bells going on, because we need to be able to figure out by the end of push week, given what their proposals are we a group that is willing to go out and strike to get a good deal? Or is this a situation where we're going to have to take what we can get? So that is the quick and dirty of negotiations, extremely quick. If you have any further questions, maybe we can pick that up at the end, but we do need to get to the strike stuff first, and then we'll go back. So thanks all.
Thank you, Adam. And please, if anyone does have any questions, feel free to drop them in chat. I know that Britton is keeping an eye on the chat and will try to answer questions. I will also try to stop if I see any questions to try to answer them verbally. By the way, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jake Siemens. I am the local 502 vice president, which means I am the strike captain for my local. And so I've been giving these trainings for our local and for our region. And so I'm here giving it all for you. Thank you so much for being here. So, starting off simple, what is a strike? And a strike, very simply, is our union, our collectively, all of us as employees of the state will withhold our labor to pressure the state, our employers, into agreeing on contract terms with us. And contract terms cover everything from how much we're paid, how much we might see in a year to year increase, our steps, and like Adam said earlier, our healthcare, how much we pay for healthcare, how much we pay for the benefits that we receive. And all of this are things that allow us to take care of our families, to allow us to take care of ourselves, so that we can go out and do really great work on behalf of all Minnesotans. I and we'll get to some of this later about all the great things that state employees do. But personally, me and a lot of our MAPE colleagues were just in a room at the SEOC responding to the assassination of Speaker Hortman and the attempted assassination of Senator Hoffman and their families. And so, those were MAPE members who were helping make Minnesota safer. We're helping protect people and ultimately help catch the guy that committed this horrible atrocity. But we need to be able to make sure that we're able to take care of ourselves so that we can go off in emergencies and help in floods, help people who are in need, help people who are just Minnesotans who need to interact with the government. So a strike is the ultimate tool to make sure that we get those things that we can take care of ourselves and go out and help everyone else. Um, and it's something that we all do together, right? If I stopped showing up to work, my boss might notice, but it's probably not going to make an enormous amount of difference. If I got 5 friends to not show up to work, that might make a little bit more of a difference. But a strike is all of us, an entire union, tens of thousands of us across the state refusing to show up to work so that we can make sure that we can be taken care of. And it's done in conjunction with a lot of other things. A strike is just really um, the last step in a long process and a step along the process to make sure that we get what we need. So you'll see right now, you're going to be seeing information about Push Week. You'll see information from our statewide leadership pressuring legislators and the governor and MMB to come to the table. So a strike is a very big deal, but it is just one part of this process. I see we have some pets making appearances on our screens today. Mine just got up and laid down in a different spot, so glad to see that. And so, what is this big thing, the strike? Well, I just described it a little bit, but why would we do that, right? Why I talked about we need to be able to take care of ourselves, but that's really what it comes down to is the work we do on behalf of Minnesotans really, really matters. And we need to be able to make sure that we can do that work. Um, so many of us work long hours in difficult circumstances. I've been with the state for 12 years. I know I've never had exactly enough resources to do all the things that I need to do, but we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, that we're able to go to the doctor, that we're able to take sick days, that if we have children, we're able to take some time off to welcome that child into the world, but also then be able to heal after that child comes into the world and to be able to get to know our children so that we can take care of them. So all of this is why we fight and why we negotiate and why we might go on a strike. And it's really just about making sure that you get a pay raise, that you get working conditions that you deserve, and that it's not undercut by increased costs of groceries, by inflation, by increased healthcare costs. That's why we joined together into a union to fight for all these things. And that's why we threaten strikes when leadership or MMB is being unreasonable. So one of the big things this year, one of the things that is a perennial issue, but also the one reason that MAPE has ever gone on a strike are healthcare proposals. The amount of money that we pay in premiums, the amount of money we pay in copays, the amount of we pay in deductibles, they are trying to increase those costs for employees, to employees, to cover up some mistakes that they've made in the past. They haven't done a good job of managing the program that we pay into for our insurance costs. And so they're trying to put that on our backs to make up that difference. And it means that effectively we're losing money by working for the state. So this is one of the things that we're fighting for, and it's one of the reasons why we could potentially go on strike this year. And even more than that, it's about being treated with dignity. It's about being treated with respect. It's about being treated like the work that we do is important, because it is really important. It makes an enormous difference in Minnesotans' lives, but we need to be treated by being compensated appropriately. Like I said, so that we can go out and do that good work. And if we don't show up, it's going to affect Minnesotans in a million and one ways. State parks will close, roads won't get fixed. We won't be giving money to people who need who need that support. We won't be able to go out and enforce inspection standards on work sites in workplaces across this state. We won't be able to tell people about important information that they need to know to make sure that they're safe, that they're able to take care of their families, and all of these thousands of things. We'll have grant programs that won't work that make a huge difference in Minnesota. So many different ways that the work that we do is really important, and we need to make sure that, like I said, that we're able to take care of ourselves while we're doing that. I'm going to sound like a broken record when I say that, but that's really what it comes down to. And this is just a few examples of the work that MAPE employees do on behalf of the people of Minnesota. Department of Corrections, rehabilitate clients. Obviously, they handle the corrections facilities, but they also do an incredible amount of work with people on parole, people who are recovering from being incarcerated, but also recovering from various ailments and addictions and those kinds of things. They do incredible work in our communities every day outside of the corrections work. Minute, I mean, the things that they help, the disasters that they prevent, the data breaches, the loss of millions of dollars, the very fact that we're able to have banking systems that work. Minute helps ensure that those things are working. The Department of Health, they're taking care of people. One of my friends works in the newborn screening division. They help make sure that babies are healthy when they're born and able to address preventative issues before it really destroys that baby's life, that family's life. They help prevent the spread of COVID-19. Obviously, that's where so many people know them from the last 5 years, but also the spread of HIV, sexually transmitted diseases, bird flu, which, has a major effect, as we've all seen in the last year, on egg prices. Department of Revenue, processing state tax income. DNR, protecting wildlife and parks. Parks will close if we go on strike. MPCA, ensure we have clean water, which I don't know. I want a good clean glass of water. I don't want toxins in that. Everyone across our colleagues in MAPE across the state make huge differences every day. So we need to be compensated for that. I think I'm frozen here, so give me just a second while I move on to the next slide. Maybe I'm going to all of a sudden skip ahead a whole bunch. I will reiterate, I think there were maybe a couple of people who joined us. Please drop any questions that you have in the chat. I know that we're keeping an eye on that so that we can answer them along the way. If you can, please update your name so we can call on you there we go. If we can call you by name if you do have a question, or if you raise your hand, we will also ask you to speak. And we are recording the session, as you probably heard. So who decides if we strike? Well, that's pretty simple. MAPE members decide if we strike. If we reach a point, and there are some circumstances that have to be met for that, the leadership, the negotiators, statewide leadership, will put a vote out to membership and say, we've reached an impasse. They're not moving off of these ridiculous proposals. We think you should strike. What do the members say? And so MAPE members will decide, do we strike or not? We all have a vote. That vote is open for a certain time period. It will close, and then we'll know the results. And we will authorize the leadership to go on strike. Now, that doesn't mean we immediately go on strike, but we've given the leadership of MAPE the permission to declare a strike on our behalf. Like I said, there are some conditions that have to be met with that. There's a cooling off period. There are several things, but that is the process, and it's ultimately your decision, my decision, our MAPE colleagues' decision. You do have to be a member of MAPE to be able to participate in that vote, though. So it's really important. If you are not a member today, and I would imagine that many of us here in this room are already members, but if you are not a member, you should join as soon as possible, because you have to be a member for 10 days before a strike vote. I think it's 10 days. Someone correct me if that's wrong. But a member for 10 days before that vote opens to participate in that vote. So join. I see the link right in there. Perfect. You can join at that link right now. Adam, did you have something you wanted to say?
It's 7 days.
7 days. Okay, I was
Close
wrong.
enough.
7 days. Um, 7 days, but still join today. Don't worry.
Make sure you're
Don't
not
come up to the
late. Get it
deadline.
in 3 days early.
Exactly. I suppose that's true. If I told you 10 and it was 7, then I just got you in ahead of the rush. But please, yes, join. It is really important that you join, not only to have your voice heard on whether or not we should strike, but also your local who does really good work on your behalf, who advocates for you in meet and confers, who might have separate negotiations with your agency. That does steward work for you and your colleagues if you ever need them in a situation where you need a steward. They do really important work, and being a member allows you to participate in elections for those folks, allows you to be involved in that process, allows you to become a steward, which, by the way, if anyone is interested in becoming a steward, please reach out to your local. It is some of the most important work you can do on behalf of your colleagues. And if you're passionate about what you do, you can help your colleagues by becoming a steward. That's just my little throw in for advocacy for stewards. So what happens before we strike? I talked about some of those conditions. Well, there's also a whole lot of activity that happens before a strike. Like we were talking about field activities. We do informational pickets. We do rallies. We do pickets up at the Capitol. We do a sidewalk chalk. My local does a lot of sidewalk chalk because we're out in downtown St. Paul. There will be local actions. So you might have rallies within your local. You might have a happy hour with your local. My local is having a happy hour tomorrow to make signs, advocating for a fair contract, advocating for people to join MAPE, to just show some support for MAPE. So you might see a lot of those activities before a strike vote is called. But it's really important to be able to show the level of support that MAPE has and the importance of a fair contract by seeing our colleagues out there on the picket, involved in these activities, or sidewalk chalking, so that leadership knows, MAPE knows, we're not joking around. We need a fair contract. It's really important to us, and we will go on strike if you're not negotiating with us fairly. You'll also see a lot of information from our statewide. You'll see them talking in the press. You'll see them talking, for example, this last weekend, our union was an official supporter of the No Kings protest that happened. And that's just another way that we show how important it is that the work we do is supported, but also that we are able to organize and show up and make our voices heard on these issues. So there's some legal steps as well before we can go on strike. One of those is we need to have an expired contract. So first of all, that's one of the first things that have to be met. Our contract runs through the end of the month. So 14, 15 days, whatever. I can't remember how many days there are in this month. At the end of this month, our contract expires. And so we need a new contract. We also have to have 45 days of Bureau of Mediation Services mediation. Just so everyone knows, that's already in process. I don't know if we've met 45 days at this point, but we will have met 45 days by the end of this month. So that is something that will be met by the time we hit the end of the month. And then the last thing is a 10-day written notice. Adam and Britton, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think once we authorize a strike vote, then we give the 10-day notice of intent to strike, and then that's when that strike could happen. Adam?
Once the strike vote is complete and the board has approved the strike vote, then we can send the note really whenever we want. Like we can sit on it conceivably. I don't see that being the case, but we might want to for various reasons. So.
And those might be, and if that does happen, it might be we think we're really close to a negotiation. We've obviously, our members have said we're willing to strike. Well, maybe that's a moment of clarity for MMB and leadership to know that we're really serious and that they need to come to the table. So just so you know, those are the things that can happen. But these are the things that we have to meet before we go out on strike. And like I said, it's that membership vote. We authorize a potential strike, and then the board of directors would vote to implement a strike. One of the things about timing, and so many people in these previous sessions that I've been in have asked, well, when would we strike? One of the things that we think about is our healthcare coverage always covers us through the end of the month. So if we were to go on strike on the 30th, our healthcare coverage would expire at the end of that month. But if we go out on the first of the month, our healthcare coverage continues through the end of that month, the next 30 days. So that is one of the things that we look at to decide when we could call a strike. In all likelihood, if we're going to call a strike, you're going to see it happen early in a month and not at the end of the month. So just something to be aware of when it comes to timing. There's a question. What happens if the board of director votes against our vote? Well, I'll let you answer, Adam. I'll let you answer.
Yeah, I can tackle this one. Well, if they vote against it, then we would not be authorizing a strike, and we'd have to figure out what to do next. I can imagine a situation where that might happen. Like, for example, if it was like a 51-49 vote and only a quarter of the people came out, then if we tried to actually strike, we would be dead in the water. And so in that instance, we would really, really, really want to like talk about things and shore things up and maybe even have another vote. But we're not going to do anything suicidal to our union, basically, depending on where the vote goes. There's also a certain knowing all the circumstances around it.
Sure. Having said that, I will say I would, if our membership decides to vote to strike, I with the exception of that what you just outlined, I can't imagine them really taking a vote against membership. If we authorize a strike, especially like if it's a strong strike vote, if it's say 99% of our members vote for a strike, they're going to support a strike. If all of us show up and vote for a strike, even if it was a close vote, they would authorize a strike. There are some situations where maybe our bargaining hand is not quite as strong as we thought, and maybe they would decide that, but I don't see that happening. Looking at the activity we've had over the last few months, I can't imagine that being the situation, but crazier things have happened.
I might add the other piece of strategy too, which is that if we go past push week and we talk to members and it doesn't seem like we're going to have turnout, we are not going to be scheduling a strike vote. Like,
yeah,
if we schedule a strike vote, we are going to have a pretty firm sense of where that strike vote is going to land.
Yeah, all part of the process. Jess, I hope that answers your question. So what does a strike look like in effect? It's exactly what you imagine a strike looks like. You are going to see people not showing up to work, first of all, state services shutting down, and our members out there on the picket line demanding a fair contract. You will see people with signs marching in front of their building saying, hey, no, give us a fair contract. That's a terrible chant, but the kind of thing you might see. You'll also see them across the state of Minnesota. I know that so many people who don't work for the state think that all state employees live in St. Paul. That's not at all the case. We have employees, MAPE members all over the state, in Duluth, Bemidji, in Wilmer, in Hutchinson, in Granite Falls. I don't know why I'm going west all of a sudden. In Grand Marais, you'll see picket lines, informational pickets all over the state. And you will see our members out there taking part of them. And we do expect and hope that every member would take part in that. Not necessarily out there. It's not like if you vote for a strike, we're going to make you stand with a sign and do that thing. There are lots of jobs to do and lots of ways for you to participate. but that might be a thing that we ask a lot of folks to do. But we would expect and hope most members don't show up to work, so that leadership, so MMB, so the governor realizes how serious we have. And there's been a mantra in the sessions that I've had with my local, with my region. The longer the picket line, the shorter the strike. The more people that we have out there with us, the more people that we have together to show how serious we are, the less time we're going to spend out there. Because it's kind of it's a real statement, and it's a statement that does cost something. If you go on strike, you are not going to be paid. You're not going to get your paycheck. So being on strike is a real serious commitment, and it's a sacrifice, and it's one that we make all of us together. I will say, and this is something that always comes up, there are small amounts of emergency funds. There may be some things that you get paid for doing certain activities. I wouldn't expect any of that, but those things do exist for the members who are most in need. That is something that might be available in certain cases. If we get there, don't worry, you'll hear a ton about that and what those things look like and how to apply for those things. I see a couple of questions. Oh, yes. And the more prepared we are to strike, the less likely it is that we will need to go on strike. Absolutely. The more that we do now, the more serious that MMB knows we are, the more likely they are going to give us what we need to be able to get a fair contract. Are non-members authorized to strike? Yes. Even if you are not a member, we still want you to join us on strike. Not being a member means you wouldn't be able to vote, wouldn't be able to participate in those kinds of process, but we would still be asking you to join us on strike. And Meredith, yes, please. Yes, everyone's new job, members and non-members, is to go on strike and be on the picket line or supporting the strike. Like I said, lots of ways for you to take part in that. If you're not comfortable being on a picket line, believe me, there's a ton of work to be done off the picket line to help support our colleagues who are out there. But yes, please join us, support the strike. It will make sure that we're all able to get back to work sooner and do the good work that we do even faster. One of the also big things as we prepare for this strike is that we're asking everyone, because if you're on strike, you don't have access to your computer. You don't have access to your state email. You don't have access, if you have a state issued phone, laptop, whatever, you won't have access to those things. And so we want you to enter your information on the MAPE website, and there's a link in the chat right now for you to update your personal email, your non-state email, your personal phone number, so that we can reach out to you if we do go on strike to let you know what's happening, so that we can keep you up to date on where negotiations are at, what is happening, so that you can hear all the things that you want to know to do your job, to be able to get back to your job, really. It is really, really important. If you are not sure if MAPE has your personal email or your personal phone number, go to that link. You can get logged in. You can add your information there. Please do that. Do it now, and do it if you need to do it again tomorrow. Do it again tomorrow. Please do that, because it's really important that we have a way to contact you. How does that work for employees that have to be in court for their job and are not legally allowed to miss court, but all correspondence is through work? Yes, that is an excellent response. The supervisor expected to do that work. One of the things to remember is MAPE employees, we're all line employees. If we don't show up to work, the non-MAPE supervisors and managers and all those highfalutin commissioners and all that kind of stuff, they have to realize how much work we do. So they are going to have to figure out how to do all that work on their own. And they're going to realize very quickly how important we are to the functioning of the state. And quite frankly, if we go on strike, and in those cases where you maybe have to be in court for your job and you're not legally allowed to miss, those are things that MAPE will be able to help you address, be able to help you answer. But quite frankly, I think it's going to be the court's going to be upset with the governor, with the leadership for not allowing you to do your job, to not paying you fairly for your job. That's who they're going to be upset with. And believe me, we'll be making sure our leadership, our members, will be messaging to the court and tell them that's who you need to be pissed off at, because they're not giving us fair compensation to do that work. And maybe I've just known a few labor-friendly judges, but they're going to understand that pretty well because they also want to be fairly compensated for their work. There's a question about MMA is not allowed to strike per their contract. The way this works theoretically is that MMA covers the essential work. MMA is, please correct me if I'm wrong, the Middle Managers Association, which is basically the organizing body for our supervisors. And so they're the ones who would be covering all of our work. That would be a nightmare for my boss. That would be a nightmare for all of our bosses if they had to do that. Here are just some instructions about how to update your information in my portal, which is the MAPE website's place where you would update all of your personal information. Please, again, do go in there and update that information as soon as possible. How else will we get in touch with you? Let's say you forgot to put your personal email or your personal phone number into my portal. We're going to still be reaching out to you in all kinds of ways. We're going to be putting information on our website. We're going to be putting information on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Blue Sky. Yay, Blue Sky. Texting, the MAPE newsletter. Those last two, we need your personal information so we can send that to you. But we will be communicating to you in all kinds of ways. It is really important that you give us your personal information so that we can send you the stuff that's for MAPE members, and so that your locals can reach out to you and let you know what's going on in your local or in your area. If you live up in northern Minnesota, where the nearest picket line is, or if they need you to show up and do something. It's really important you put your information in there so that we can reach out to you in those circumstances, but we will also be flooding the airwaves with our message. And so you'll see a lot of that information there. And like I said, then you're going to see us striking all over the state. You'll see strike lines everywhere. Every corner of the state we have MAPE employees, and everywhere there will be a strike line. You will have strike captains who are assigned. For example, I'm the strike captain for my local, for 502, which is in downtown St. Paul in the Town Square building. You will have strike captains all across the state for your locals, mostly your local vice presidents, but also if you have, you might have regional strike captains who are in charge of a particular location. You will see, like I said, the actions. You might see marches on the Capitol. You might see marches out in front of the governor's mansion. You might see us marching up to whoever can make a difference for this. Maybe we'll march on St. Paul, and just a little, return to office hurt there. Maybe we'll march up to the mayor's mansion. That's not that he has one, but whatever. You'll see all kinds of actions all across the state. You're going to see us in front of the Capitol for sure, but you'll see us all over the place doing different things. And you will see our leadership speaking to the media, advocating for a fair contract. You will see our president, Megan Dayton, out there talking about why it's important that we're on strike, what this matters, and why it is that we're out there. And you will see trainings, and you will participate in trainings, and you'll have lots of opportunities for trainings on information on how to conduct a strike. Like I said, the picket line is just one way to participate. There will be trainings. We will be teaching you how to do that effectively. But also we will be having trainings on other parts that we need your support on during the strike. And they will, again, be based all over Minnesota. I imagine a lot of them will be at our union hall, but they will be all over the place, and you'll have opportunities to take part in that. And yeah, here, there's pictures of it. This is exactly what you will see across the state. People standing with signs, talking about why it is we need a fair contract. You'll see us in front of the Capitol. You'll see us in our MAPE gear. If you would like to purchase some MAPE gear, please go on the MAPE website. You can purchase your MAPE gear. My local president just bought himself a hat, so he says he can put on his MAPE hat when he has to answer questions. So please, you will see us all over the place. We hope that you will take part with us. We want you out there so that we can all get back to work as quickly as possible. And it will make a difference. These kinds of things, I know there are some non-believers who don't think that these kinds of picket lines or informational pickets or actions don't make a difference. I assure you that they do. It turns heads, it changes people's minds, and it will help us get what we need to take care of ourselves and our families so we can take care of the state. And like I said, you will see our leadership out there speaking, showing up in the media, showing up at the 10 o'clock on the 10 o'clock news about why it's so important that we're out there and on strike and the effects that it's having. And the trainings, like I said, Zoom trainings, local trainings, in our union hall, in our partners' union halls, all over the place. But obviously, like I said, the strike is just one step in the process. It's the big step. It is the most powerful tool we have. But there are lots of things that we can do today to, frankly, help us avoid having to go on strike, but also get what we need. Updating your information. I said this, update your information on my portal. It is really important that we get that information so we can reach out to you. But you can also take part by joining your contract action team and recruiting others, your colleagues, your work best friend to join you there so that we can take action to show how serious we are and why we deserve a fair contract for our work. You can take part on that through your local. And Matthew, thank you. You put a link in the chat on how to get involved. Click that link. It will take you to the information you need to get involved in those things. We are also asking folks to fill out a survey. There's a QR code over here. If you want to pull out your phone right now, scan that QR code. It will take you to a web page that you can fill out information about the potential for a strike, your willingness for a strike. What is so important for you that you would go out and strike? I think I've talked about healthcare being one of those things. I know paid parental leave was a really big thing that we were able to get as a union a few years ago through our negotiations. Quite frankly, that's something I would be willing to strike for because every parent deserves the opportunity to go out and be with their new child, to be with their adopted child once they come into their lives. There's also a link in the chat that will take you to that form right now. You can fill it out. It takes just a couple of minutes. It's really important for us to have that information. And thank you, Kurt. Any chance that you have, strike or not, showing up as a member in the crowd, at a rally, on a strike line, at lobby day, whatever, is going to be really important. It makes a difference. There's push week next week, and you're going to see a lot of those kinds of activities. So please do join us. You will see emails from MAPE. You'll see emails from your local. I know I'm doing like a weekly email for my local about how our local members are able to take part. Look for those emails from your local about how you can take part in local activities. The more people that you see out there, that MMB sees out there, that the leadership sees out there, the more serious they will take our negotiations. And I see here there's a Duluth action rally in the chat. You can click there if you're up in the Duluth area. 1402 is having a rally next week. Please look for information if you're part of that local. And there's a Mankato rally for Push Week next week. Click on that link right there. That will take you to that rally information. So please take that survey, put your information in the MAPE portal. Those are a couple very easy ways you can get involved right now. But like I said, you can also, like Kurt said, you can take part in our rallies, our Push Week activities, and any of the events that are on the MAPE website. Link in the chat there. Um, it makes an enormous difference to show how serious we are as a union. And then there's some other activities. You can um, contact Governor Walz. I think we have a form on our website. I think that's what that link is. That will kind of pre-fill some things for you, but you can put in your information and put in the particular reasons why um, a fair contract will help you in your life and will help you help other Minnesotans, and that will be sent to Governor Walz. You can talk to your colleagues. There are so many. I work for DPS, and I work for a relatively. My local is relatively small. MAPE is a relatively small part of DPS because we have troopers and investigators and all kinds of things. But we have little pockets of big MAPE members all over the place, and so we've done a lot of work to just find someone who's passionate about MAPE within each of those little pockets so that they can talk to their coworkers. Because I'm not in every part of the agency. My president is not in every part of the agency. We can't reach all these folks. But when you are talking to your colleague or when your colleague is talking to you, it makes an enormous difference. You believe your colleague, you know how it's going to affect their life. And when you're talking to your colleague about how important a fair contract is to you, they're going to be like, oh yeah, this makes an enormous difference in someone's life. Or they might be able to tell you about how important it is to them or the struggles that they might be having. And we need to be able to be paid for our wonderful work, but that makes a difference in our lives. That makes it possible for us to show up for all the other folks in Minnesota. So invite others, talk to your colleagues, just reach out. It can make an enormous amount of difference. And it's also ways that your local beyond the contract can also address the issues for you as a union, because meet and confers are something that happen all the time in some places. I know every place, I think they're supposed to have at least one meet and confer. So if you have issues within your workplace, these are things that your union can address for you. So talk to each other, because that's how we make a difference in our workplaces. And show up to our events. It is going to make a big difference. I just spoke very fast. Does anyone have any questions? There's a question. I know you said that MMA has to cover our duties, but our supervisors aren't qualified to testify in court to our work. So it would be impossible for our supervisors to cover our court duties. We're a small group, but it's a big problem for forensic scientists. Okay, so you work for a forensic scientist. You might be in my same agency. You might be part of the other local, but you might be part of my agency. I hope you are. Absolutely, that is very true. And everybody is going to have, all of us are going to have, we're passionate about our work. We care about the work that we do, and we know how important it is. And so we want to show up to the office to do our work. But we need to be treated fairly and to be compensated fairly. What I will say in that particular situation, and it is a very good call out, and each of us have to make a decision about going out on a strike for ourselves, might be something that we talk about as a union and that your local may talk about, and Adam will let you speak in a second here. But it's also worth saying it will be your supervisor's responsibility to go to the court and say, we need to push this because this person is on strike right now because they need to be treated fairly in the workplace. They need to be compensated fairly, and they have to figure that out. And I know MMA, there are supervisors there, but they're also, in a lot of ways, are colleagues too. They care about these things. They care about these cases that you're working on, and they care about the work that you're doing too. They may not always agree with us, but they are also going to do everything they can. I hope, I know, I hope, I believe this, that they're going to tell the court too that this needs to be pushed off. This needs to be held until after the strike is called, and they'll realize again it'll be another moment of how important it is the work that we do on behalf of Minnesotans. Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, that was a great answer, and you took 9/10 of what I was going to say. So thanks, Jay. But just to underscore a little bit of that, it is the state's responsibility, not your responsibility, to fulfill those roles. And if the state is failing to make that possible by not giving you a deal, your job is protected. You're like you because you are functioning in that role of employment. And it is the state that is failing, not we that are failing. This like where that matters, the state would obviously be well advised to push for continuance, and I think that that would be granted. But and I can't reinforce this enough. That is the state's problem, just as it's the state's problem. Like if one day you're going to go and you win the lottery, or you're going to go to court and you decide, or you get sick, you get a heart attack. The forensic office, has something terrible happening. Like it is the state's responsibility to fill that, not you. And it should be just like any other situation where for some reason you're not able to fulfill your duty because you're sick or anything like that. It is exactly the same thing, and that is not a responsibility that falls on us. If you are concerned, like I am, if there are very specific things beyond that that like make forensic specialists, scientists extra special, like I'm also happy to bulldog some of that stuff. I do have some background in that I can help with. So, um,
And
I
VL, you
okay
raise,
would say do not deny a subpoena. If you get subpoenaed, go to court. That is something else again. Yeah.
and I will say too, um, I know that showing up to court is not your whole job. Show up to a subpoena, that's important. It is, yes, and you could be personally held in contempt of court. It is still the state's responsibility, but in those situations, and especially within your local, because your local represents a lot of forensic scientists, um, yes, you would have to cross the picket line to get court materials agreed, but those are things that MAPE can help you with, and those are the kinds of questions that our MAPE legal team will be able to help you answer. And those are, again, things, because your local represents so many of the forensic scientists. If you're working where I think you work, and I think you probably do, those are things that will definitely be coming up, but those are things that we will address in that situation. Um, and like I said, no one is, we want everyone to be out on strike with us. But I will also say, and this is a question that's come up in past trainings, it is a personal decision. And there might be someone who is not able to join us on strike because they're in such hardship, because their financial position is so desperate that they have to make a different choice. One, I try to have compassion for those people, um, but I also have told people, your fellow mate members who are out on strike are fighting for you to make your financial situation less desperate, to keep you from going backwards in that financial situation, and they will remember that you were not out there with them to take care of them like they're taking care of you. So just be aware of that. It is a personal decision. Um, our colleagues are our colleagues. We are fighting for all of them, but just be aware that that is also what's going on in people's mind. There was a question about where can I find the proposed cost of health insurance for a retiree. Um, this isn't negotiated by the coalition. Adam responded, and they haven't figured out those costs. My expectation that they're waiting to see what the deal is that we negotiate. So that information will come. Please be on the lookout for it. We just don't have that information right now. I will say some of the other healthcare proposals are on the MAPE website, and for members who are not looking at retirement, who are currently retired, you can see that information on the MAPE website, and you will see how extreme that cost sharing is that they've tried to put on our backs. Just like return to office, they're trying to fix all the problems in the world on our backs. They're trying to fix healthcare. The healthcare situation's horrible altogether situation on our backs. So you can see that information out there. VL, I think we addressed some of your questions. Kurt, kind of a repeat, even just being another face in the crowd makes a difference. I like analogies. You'll never hear that saying, many hands make you ever hear the saying that many hands make light work. Think of something like an old-fashioned barn raising. You have all those people together. I'm going to paraphrase. You have all those people together who are working together to make an enormous task go by very quickly. And by the way, for anyone who's ever seen um, an actual barn raising, I've had the privilege. It goes by remarkably fast because they have so many people working together. It is incredible how fast, when you get a big group dedicated to one issue, are able to get together and just come together and make that happen. Things can happen incredibly fast. And I think that analogy is perfect here, because if we all join together, if we do need to go on a strike to get a fair contract, all of us together will make that process so much faster and will make a monumental difference to make sure that we get a fair contract. Meredith said our crisis fund is 13.5 million. And we would also have a lot of mutual aid going on. MAPE contributes to other unions when they go on strike. And to carry that further, they will return that favor. UAW, the auto workers union, went on strike a few years ago. I know that MAPE helped them out when they were on strike. We have a large coalition. There are a lot of unions who are all interested in all of us being fair, treated better, so that all of us have good working conditions and good compensation. And our union brothers and sisters outside of MAPE will be there with us to help us make this, to get us a fair contract. And we also, when the time comes, will join with them in those situations to make sure that they get a fair contract. Because, to paraphrase Paul Wellstone, a rising tide. We all do better when we all do better. When when the auto workers are paid well, it's going to return back to us. And when we're paid well, they're going to do better. So all of us together will make an enormous difference. Will the survey link be placed in the chat? Thank you for everyone's work. I see Matthew put the survey link, the first link in his little paragraph there. You can take that survey there. Join MAPE, the current proposals, how to get involved, all that information there. Please click on those links. And Britton, I think you also put the link to the survey in there as well. Meredith says, Susan Von Bank and other R9 folks, please, Region 9 folks, please take the survey so I can get a record that you attended. So yes, Region 9, please fill out that survey. It helps Meredith know that you attended the meeting today. Any other questions? Anything else? You guys can ask anything. We are, like I said, all in this together. This is actually you guys made it easy on me today. We had a lot of questions in one of my regionals, and we had a lot of answering and a lot of difficult questions and a lot of things I didn't know. I don't think you've stumped any of us yet today. So please, if you have any questions, reach out to us. You can reach out to you, statewide folks. You can go on the MAPE website and you can see who your locals are. It has a cool little find your local tool, and it will tell you who your local leadership is and how to reach out to them and their emails and all that jazz, maybe even their phone numbers. I'm not sure, but you can go on the website and find your local. And your local, there you go, the find your local tool right there in the chat. They can answer your questions as well. And if you want to reach out to your local VP, who, like I said, will be your strike captain if we go on strike, they should have all these answers for you too. We all had to take a training, so we know all these answers. So you can reach out to them. VL, theoretically, if I have to cross the picket line due to subpoena, my understanding is that I'm no longer allowed to strike. I don't think that's true. Adam, I'm going to let you answer that question if you know the answer.
I would, without going into too much detail, I would be very cautious about doing intermittent striking. So in that sense, like going in and out is one of the things that can lead to an illegal strike. And so I'd probably say that at the point that you're forced in to do it, I really think it's fairly likely that they're going to be getting continuances in cases and such like that. So I'm not that concerned, but I appreciate knowing and keep in touch. We're like, well, these are the things that we will work through if we get to this point.
Yep, absolutely. And VL, you finally asked one that stumped us, so thank you for that. But I, as a leader of like I said, I think the other half of your organization and the other half of the DPS crew for MAPE, I can promise you at least that the 502 local will be working with your local if those are issues that we need to be addressed. I know that MAPE will also be able to help us answer those questions. We're not going to let you go to jail for contempt of court. I promise you. We're going to make sure we figure out the answer to those questions if we have to during the strike. And I will say that goes for all of you. If there are individual circumstances that will make it difficult for you to strike, reach out to your local folks because they will be able to help you. We have a contingency fund for people who are in dire financial circumstances. We have lots of ways that we'll be able to help you, lots of questions that we'll be able to answer. Going on strike is a sacrifice. I hope it's not a necessary sacrifice. I hope we don't have to go on strike. But if we do, it will be a sacrifice that will make us all better off in the long run. Jess asks, in your conversations, are you getting a feel where membership is at with regard to striking? My local seems pretty consistent on saying yes, so just curious. Yes, absolutely. In the conversations that I've had with my local, the conversations that I've heard from other locals, these healthcare proposals are pretty ridiculous. We need cost of living adjustments. We need to be able to not fall behind. We need to make sure that we're able to take care of our families and be well enough to be able to do the work that we do on behalf of Minnesotans. And if MMB is going to penny pinch and try to put all of their mistakes on our backs and fix all their problems, we're going to go out on strike. We are willing to take that action. That is something. If that's how they're going to be, then we will go out on strike to make sure that we can get a fair contract. And that's pretty much what I've heard. Any news on what percentage of increase we can expect to offset the increase in healthcare? Adam, if you think that there is an answer to that, I would say negotiations, they look at those almost as separate issues. I think in a lot of ways, yes, they are related, but we expect that we're able to be better off year to year and not falling behind. But Adam, I'll let you answer that question.
If I were eyeballing it, and this is just the rough number I ran, that would be that the increase in healthcare would be equal to a 1% wage increase the first year and a 1% wage increase the second year, as it currently stands. It's about a 1-1. That is really rough numbers, and I would beg to not be quoted on it. But
understandable, and thank you for giving that answer. But I will say, you add in inflation on top of that too, and that we expect that we're better off year to year, not worse off year to year. And so those are the numbers that if they're trying to jack up our healthcare so much and they're not then also covering even more than inflation, they're setting us back. And so we expect to be treated fairly and well for the incredible work we do on behalf of Minnesota. For a lot of people, the proposed healthcare increases are like losing a month of take-home pay. Absolutely. And that is one of the reasons why we are fighting so hard. We've never had a cost of living adjustment, in my opinion. The cost of living adjustment follows. The cost of living adjustment would follow the cost of living. The cost of living has gone up on average greater than our across-the-board raises for decades. I will agree with you 100% on that. And there are lots of reasons why that's the case. I think we've done better than others in other situations have done, but it's still a fight that we have to have every day. And someone raised their hand, I saw, but I seem to have lost them. Meredith, did you have a question? I seem to have lost you on my screen.
It's just this is a thing. I was typing it, and it might have been a little reactive, but one of our proposals this year is to have a cost of living adjustment. Kurt is entirely right. I might be a little annoying to people, but when people refer to our across the board increases as cost of living increases, a cost of living increase is defined by being linked to an inflation index. We have always negotiated just an across the board increase, but one of our proposals this year is to introduce a cost of living increase into our contract. So we would be always getting a pay increase in line with based off of the inflation index, and then we would negotiate an across the board increase on top of inflation. So that would mean that we're always at least keeping up with inflation, and what we're negotiating is how much we're going above that. So I think that's really exciting.
And it is a much
so it's not a question, it's just an additional comment.
No, thank you so much for that, because it is really important to point that out, and especially in response to Kurt, it is absolutely right, and we deserve to be better off year to year. I know so many people who are capped out, for example, and every year they lose money because they are not able to keep up with inflation. Jess, if we lose this, we will never get it back. Most of us don't work for the state to get rich, but for healthcare and retirement. And that's absolutely true. One of the primary things that I tell people when I'm talking about why to work for the state, when I'm trying to convince them to take a job with us, is you're not going to get rich, but at very least you can pay for your healthcare. You can pay for retirement. You can be taken care of so that you can do amazing and incredible work. All right. People, we have run over time, so please don't stick around if you don't have to. Get on with your lives tonight. Thank you so much for showing up here. It is wonderful to see the interest that members have and to be able to answer questions for folks, because this is an incredibly important issue. And we're fighting, like I said, as you've heard me say obnoxiously a number of times, it is so important that we're able to take care of ourselves and our families so that we can do incredible work on behalf of the state of Minnesota.